Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. For today's video, we're actually going to be talking about the January 6ers that were pardoned by Donald Trump. This has been quite the contentious issue ever since it occurred. There's a lot of information and a lot of misinformation going on about what those January 6ers were arrested for, what they were charged with, what they were convicted of, and kind of the information around the pardoning of those people. I've been wanting to make a video on this, but it's such a complex and convoluted subject that I've been having a hard time figuring out how I kind of want to address it. Well, I was watching the what do you call it? The hearing for Kash Patel, who's up for FBI director, confirmation hearing. That's the word I'm looking for. I was watching some clips from the confirmation hearing of Kash Patel, who's up for director of the FBI. And I saw an exchange between him and Senator Dick Durbin that, quite frankly, was where Dick Durbin was wrong about some major facts that he was presenting to Kash Patel. And it occurred to me that this is a perfect example of a way to address this, because, you know, people are not being honest about what's really going on, what happened on January 6th, and the reason why the January 6th people were prosecuted, as well as what's going on with the pardoning of the people involved in January 6th. Just a lot of people not being honest. And if we're going to have discussions, and discussions often take the form of debate, and we're going to have an honest debate about what's really going on and the issues that are affecting our country, then we need to be honest about the facts in order to have an honest debate. And that is clearly something that is not happening right now. So I want to go ahead and play the short clip, this exchange between Dick Durbin and Kash Patel about the January 6th people. I'll tell you that I agree 100% with Kash Patel and his stance on the January 6th stuff. So when what he says, I will echo his sentiment. And then when they get done talking, I want to talk about an opportunity that Kash Patel actually missed. And I understand, you know, how hard it is to think on your feet in these kind of situations, but he definitely missed an opportunity when replying to Dick Durbin about that with his question. And that is exactly what I plan on doing now. I want to kind of provide the answer that Kash should have provided that would make, I don't know, maybe make people feel more comfortable about the pardons of all the J6 people that Trump pardoned. But without further ado, let's play the video so you can see what I'm talking about, and then we'll talk about what exactly happened there.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Patel, I woke up this morning to National Public Radio, and they had an item on there about what has happened to those who were given blanket clemency by President Trump. One of these individuals was a man named Matthew Huddle. Are you familiar with him?
I'm sorry, what was the last name?
Matthew Huddle.
If you could remind me, Senator.
Well, I was reminded again this morning. He's a man who's been found guilty of numerous crimes. Mr. Huddle was one of the demonstrators who came to the Capitol on January 6th. He was incarcerated and charged with, and pled guilty to crimes that he had committed, violence against police officers. After he was released by President Trump, he returned to his home state of Indiana. A few days later, he was stopped on the road, pulled a gun on a policeman. The policeman, sheriff's deputy, turned, shot, and killed him. This is not the only instance of a person who received President Trump's clemency committing another crime. So I guess my question is this. Was President Donald Trump wrong to give blanket clemency to the January 6 defendants?
Thank you, Ranking Member. A couple of things on that. One, the power of the presidential pardon is just that, the president.
Well, I concede he has the authority. I'm asking, was he wrong to do it?
And as we discussed in our private meeting, Senator, I have always rejected any violence against law enforcement, and I have, including in that group, specifically addressed any violence against law enforcement on January 6th, and I do not agree with the commutation of any sentence of any individual who committed violence against law enforcement.
So do you think that America is safer because these 1,600 people have been given an opportunity to come out of serving their sentences and live in our communities again?
Senator, I have not looked at all 1,600 individual cases. I have always advocated for imprisoning those that cause harm to our law enforcement and civilian communities. I also believe America is not safer because President Biden's commutation of a man who murdered 2 FBI agents, Agent Kohlers and Williams' family, deserve better than to have the man that point blank range fired a shotgun into their heads and murdered them released from prison. So it goes both ways.
Leonard Pelletier was in prison for 45 years. He's 80 years old, and he was sentenced to home confinement. So he's not free, as you might have just suggested.
He killed 2 FBI agents.
That's true, he did, and he went to prison for it and should have. My question to you, though, is do you think America is safer because President Trump issued these pardons to 1,600 of these criminal defendants, many of whom violently assaulted our police in the Capitol? I don't think we're safer. Matthew Huddle was sent back to Indiana. I don't think.
All right, so to start things off, when Kash responded to that, I want to echo his statement. You know, people that commit acts of violence against police officers should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. It doesn't matter if you're a BLM protester, an Antifa member, or somebody that assaulted and attacked police officers, Capitol Police, anybody like that on January 6th. All of those people should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law and receive whatever punishment is required for that kind of thing. We've seen over the years that the distribution of that kind of discipline has not been handed down evenly. And what we saw on January the 6th was everybody that was captured on video or photographic evidence inside the Capitol building was treated as if they were one of the people who violently assaulted police officers. And you just heard Dick Durbin there talking about, you know, I don't think the world is safer because this guy that was convicted of violently assaulting a police officer was set free by Donald Trump. There's a lot of misinformation out there with the idea they think that, here, I'm going to change this other screen so that I don't have that line on the bottom. People are trying to say that everybody that Donald Trump pardoned on January 6th was currently in prison and they were released from prison due to that pardon. And then what he goes to talk about is this guy right here. Got the name written down because it's not at the top of the article. Matthew Huddle. Matthew Huddle is a guy, I guess that's his picture right there in the middle. He was an Indiana resident and he was pardoned by Donald Trump. And he was recently shot to death during a traffic stop. He apparently pulled a weapon on police officers. They shot and killed him. With headlines like this saying Indiana man pardoned by Trump is fatally shot during a traffic stop, they're trying to make you believe that this guy was in prison and then Donald Trump let him out of prison and he went and got involved in an incident with police and got himself shot. That's not what happened at all. And he was not convicted of a violent crime on January 6th. If you go down through the article, and I should have gone through and highlighted this before. Let's see. Oh, right here. In 2023, Huddle was sentenced to 6 months in custody after pleading guilty to entering a restricted building, the U.S. Capitol. He had traveled there with his uncle to Washington on January 6, 2021 for a pro-Trump rally. He was inside the Capitol for 16 minutes, and it was recorded on video. So this guy, and I could go down further, but it doesn't really matter at this point. This guy was filmed inside the Capitol, basically trespassing. What do they call it? He was guilty of entering a restricted building. So, for lack of a better term, he was arrested for trespassing. He was sentenced to 6 months in jail back in 2023. He served his time and he was out on probation. I'm assuming it was probation. So he was already in Indiana at the time that Donald Trump pardoned him. These 1,600 people, of the ones that were pardoned by Trump, the overwhelming majority of them had already committed their sentences, done their time, and were released, either on supervised release or like they were just completely home scot-free. I saw a video with another man talking. His charge was actually picketing in the U.S. Capitol. There's an actual charge for that. And he was convicted of that. He was not given any jail time, to my knowledge, unless I got that story wrong. But he was just given probation because he was seen inside the Capitol picketing, and he was charged with a crime for that. this stuff about the January 6th nonsense and the Trump pardons for all of the January 6ers, the reason, my belief, the reason that Trump pardoned so many people is because the Justice Department went so hard after people that did not commit violent offenses. They treated people who had not committed a violent offense as if they were violent criminals. And a lot of them were not. A lot of them were simply people that were trespassing on the grounds. This guy, this Matthew Huddle, sounds like he was a bad guy. Sounds like he was a piece of shit. I'm sure, as it happens with all things, there's a lot of people there that were bad guys, that were pieces of shit, that just didn't do any violent acts. There was also a lot of people that committed acts of violence, and the video footage or something like that wasn't there to capture them, to convict them, and get them prosecuted for their crime. The majority of the people that were prosecuted were people that were just kind of walking around filming. That we've seen the other videos, and maybe I'll go back and edit it and splice it back in here, but we have seen videos of people being escorted through the Capitol by Capitol Police, having Capitol Police open and shut doors for them, walk them through. Those people didn't necessarily know that what they were doing was in violation of the law, because they were under the assumption that the Capitol building is a public building, and that the public is allowed to walk through public buildings. They didn't assault anyone. They didn't fight anyone. They didn't damage anything. That's what the majority of people involved with January 6th were honestly doing. The problem was that the Justice Department treated everybody as if they had committed these heinous acts of violence. So what Trump did is he viewed this as political retaliation. And in order to kind of right what he believed was a wrong, he went ahead and pardoned everybody. I think that this would have been avoided if during the years of the BLM riots, like here in Columbus, the city attorney's office here in Columbus dismissed over 2,000 criminal cases. A lot of them were assaults on police officers. They dismissed them, and the reason they gave was in the interest of justice. I'll find that headline and I'll put that up here. BLM rioters, Antifa rioters were not charged with these crimes. Antifa in Washington, D.C. tried to light a church on fire. To my knowledge, nobody was charged with arson in that incident. Then on January 6th, you have a lot of people that committed the act of trespass, which is a misdemeanor charge, and they were prosecuted as if they had just tried to murder somebody. There's definitely a lot of disparate treatment in the law. A lot of people are being treated differently because of their political affiliation. And it's not an honest process. If this was an honest process, I don't believe Trump would have done what he did. But at the end of the day, saying that 1,600 violent criminals were pardoned by Trump is just not honest. And if we're going to have an honest discussion moving forward for how we're going to be as a country, what kind of things we're going to allow, what kind of things we're not going to allow, we have to be honest about these things. I'll play the clip again right here where Dick Durbin said that this guy was convicted of assaulting a police officer.
He was incarcerated and charged with, and pled guilty to crimes that he had committed, violence against police officers.
No, he was not convicted of doing anything violent. He pled guilty to entering a restricted space. And for that, he did his time, and he was pardoned by Trump. After that, he went and got himself killed by the police. That's not Trump's fault. Maybe he was emboldened by Trump. I don't know. But he wouldn't have been locked up if Trump hadn't pardoned him. He was already out on supervised release. That's the point that a lot of people are forgetting. That's all I wanted to say about this. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you guys later.